helping boards catch the vision for better governance. Co-authors Dan Busby and John Pearson have written an engaging and powerful training tool, Lessons from the Church Boardroom, 40 Insights for Exceptional Governance. Join prolific authors and bloggers Dan and John as they share their expertise from several of the lessons. Our prayer is that this video will inspire your board and help you accomplish an even greater vision for good governance.
Dan, how important is the time spent preparing for the board meeting in comparison to the time spent in the board meeting? In other words, do you believe there's a direct correlation between the pre-board meeting effort and the quality of the meeting? And if so, how significant is that connection?
Well, John, oh my, did you ever just nail it? There absolutely is a direct correlation between the pre-meeting time and an impactful board meeting. Here is principle number one. Either invest time and effort before the board meeting or pay at your leisure for not giving the board meeting the priority it deserves. Well ahead of the board meeting, it should be bathed in prayer by board members and church staff. And here's principle number two. If we don't invoke the blessing of the Almighty in our board meetings, the meetings will be perfunctory and the board is unlikely to be addressing really important issues. John, will you cover other principles in planning a church board meeting?
Yes, in addition to prioritizing prayer, the board chair and senior pastor should have a high comfort level with the agenda. Otherwise, one or the other or both will go into a board meeting with unnecessary anxiety, and their body language will be evident to all. Next, the board members should have time to reconnect. Relationships happen in the margin or the white space. Allow board members to reconnect over a meal or at a minimum pray together, maybe in small groups at the beginning of the board meeting. Minimizing minutia should be a goal of every church board meeting. That would make a great boardroom poster. Minimize minutia. And here are several best practices that we've observed. Creating a consent agenda for routine matters, wrapping several motions into one. Also, instead of explaining every report that was provided to the board with advanced materials, budget time only for Q&A related to the reports. And finally, assign time estimates to each agenda item, building in a buffer to provide the board chair with flexibility when productive discussion goes longer than expected, and that happens. Dan, I love the concept of heavy lifting, one of the three principles that you're going to tell us more about, right?
Well, John, yes, these last three are very important. First, provide time for heavy lifting. Generously allocate time on the agenda for those important issues, some call them big rocks, that require great insight and discernment. Next, frame all actions. What do I mean by that? In the advanced board materials, the intent of every agenda item must be clear. There are usually three options. Number one, inform. Number two, accept. Or number three, approve. If approval of an item is sought, the proposed written resolution should be included. The board may modify the proposed action, but the mere fact that the discussion starts with a carefully worded motion means that finishing the approval process is a much easier step. And finally, allow adequate time for an executive session. Church boards need time to meet by themselves. In every meeting, non-board members should be excused for a period of time so the board can have the freedom to discuss appropriate topics in their absence. The fact that an individual, but a non-board member, is on the church staff does not give them a license to sit in on board meetings. Being in the boardroom is a privilege exercised by invitation of the board. There are also times when the board should meet with the senior pastor recused. These times include consideration of the senior pastor's compensation package and to discuss a periodic performance review if applicable. So John, any final thoughts?
Well, Dan, we both heard each other say this frequently, and it comes down to this principle. Either invest time and effort before the board meeting, or pay at your leisure for not giving the board meeting the priority it deserves.